It's the clash of the Titans, Hillary and Trump versus Monday Night Football. I'm Jeff Wagner in for Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Well, good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. I'm Jeff Wagner filling in for Charlie Sykes. Riots break out in Charlotte, North Carolina after a black police officer shoots an armed man outside an apartment complex last Tuesday. Some rioters chose to express their concerns about alleged social injustice by trying to loot a local Walmart and stealing high-end sneakers from a downtown store. Welcome to America in 2016. A 9-year-old boy is accidentally shot by his 6-year-old sibling. Questions remain about how the child got access to the gun in the first place. Somebody certainly has some explaining to do. And call it the curse of Ray Allen. Since the Bucs traded away their superstar back in 2003, it seems like they've been operating under a black cloud. 2 days after signing the Greek Freak to a multi-year contract, starting guard Chris Middleton tears his hamstring and is lost for 6 months. One step forward, one step back. But first this morning, a new Marquette University Law School poll shows the Wisconsin presidential race is too close to call. Among likely voters in a head-to-head matchup, Hillary Clinton leads Donald Trump by 2 points, 44 to 42%. Libertarian Party candidate Gary Johnson is currently polling at 11%. If just a few of the Libertarian voters switch to Trump, it could turn the Wisconsin race upside down. So, could Donald Trump really win Wisconsin? Joining me to discuss the question this morning are Susie Falk from the Falk Group Public Relations, Colin Roth from the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, Tracy Johnson from the Commercial Association of Realtors, and State Representative Jim Ott. Okay, Tracy, let's start with you. Can Donald Trump really win Wisconsin?
I can't believe I'm saying this, but yes, I do think he can win Wisconsin, and it has everything to do with it being a change election and those statistics you pointed to earlier. Thinking about Gary Johnson and the other candidate taking away the votes, I believe, from Donald Trump right now. And once they see the two face-to-face on the debate stage on Monday night, they're going to have that binary choice, and they're going to start to say, if it's a change election, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump.
I talk to people all the time on the radio, and they say it's going to be a protest vote. They realize Gary Johnson's not going to win, but they want to have that protest vote. Do you think some of them might leave?
I do. I think they're going to see the reality of it. I think Donald Trump is going to be prepared for the debates, and I think he knows that people are going to have this binary decision, and they're going to make it. And I think a couple of them are going to switch over and put him over the edge.
Susie Falk, the Hillary Clinton folks have to be looking at these poll numbers, and a Republican has not won Wisconsin in a presidential race since Ronald Reagan in 1984. They've got to be looking at these poll numbers and saying, how can our candidate only be 2 points ahead at this point?
Well, sure, and they're scratching their head, and they have been for several weeks now, if not a couple months. I think this is what's going to happen. You're going to have the debate Monday night, and Hillary's going to look really strong. She's going to present herself as likable, and that's really what she has to accomplish tomorrow night. And what's going to happen is Gary Johnson is eventually going to quit because he can't keep it up, okay? And so you're going to have the independent voters who are thinking voters. They're going to vote for Hillary, and Hillary will gain momentum in Wisconsin. She just
So you think Hillary Clinton is going to mop up the floor with Donald Trump on Monday night?
I think Hillary's going to do much better than Donald Trump, and I think she is going to get Gary Johnson to finally figure out he's got to back out. I doubt Johnson's going to endorse either candidate, right, but I do think that Hillary's going to pick up many of those independent voters who typically like Democrats better than Republicans in the state.
Colin Roth, I admit I'm in a quandary now because I'm a never Hillary guy, I'm a never Trump guy. I am really wrestling with what to do here. I am surprised that those poll results show the race to be as close as it is. Can Trump win?
Yeah, I went back and I looked at kind of the 2012 numbers, and these numbers actually, interestingly enough, kind of mirror those numbers, where it got close a few times between Romney and Obama here in Wisconsin, but eventually, it went back and forth, but Obama was always leading, and in this case, I think Hillary was always leading, even as it gets close. But we've had 2 straight polls that show this. I think the debate is crucial. I think it's one of the only chances to kind of upend the sense of this race. And I disagree. I think Trump has a very good chance of showing up well in that debate. Hillary has tried to make the case that he is temperamentally unfit. If he comes across and passes the eye test for a lot of voters, look out.
Well, Jim Ott, I mean, that was going back in time. You and I are old enough to remember the Ronald Reagan debate, and that was the real issue. I mean, Jimmy Carter, sort of a failed presidency, But the question was, is Ronald Reagan presidential enough? Is this retired movie actor? And the debates were where Reagan really convinced America that, yeah, I can be the president, and the election was pretty much over. Can Trump do that, do you think?
Well, I've been saying all along that the debates are going to be kind of a defining moment in this. And I think the debate, especially the first one, may be able to move the needle on the polls, maybe 3 or 4 points either way. And if it moves Donald Trump's way, he's going to be ahead. And you know, he's been getting more presidential over the last month, so I think he has a chance of doing very well on Monday night. As far as anyone voting for a third-party candidate, you know your candidate is not going to win. Teddy Roosevelt, 1912, 27%, best a third-party candidate ever did. So all you could possibly do is be playing a spoiler, and any Republican who doesn't see any difference between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, you know, maybe they don't care if they're a spoiler or not. I do see a difference, and I think that's something to consider, that if you're voting for the third-party candidate, you may be a spoiler, but not the way you want it to turn out.
Okay, Colin Roth, you're like me. You're a kind of do-the-numbers guy. If a Republican in a statewide election, president, governor, whatever, is going to do well, they've got to do well in the WOW counties, Washington, Waukesha, Ozaukee County. Trump is underperforming by a large margin in those areas. Can he turn it around in the collar counties?
Well, he's coming to Waukesha next week, and I think what you're going to see is what you see is room for growth. And I think as a candidate in the last
for growth
in the last few days, there are voters that he can go out and get that are predisposed to his message, that aren't likely to be Hillary Clinton voters. I think there's a very, very good opportunity for him there.
Susie Falk, we were talking about the whole Hillary perspective. Has she kind of maxed out? I mean, she's incredibly well known. People have their opinions. You think she can really carve persuadable voters to come and vote for her?
I truly do. I think she knows policy. She knows domestic policy, and she knows foreign policy. And I think that's going to come out very loudly Monday night. And I think there are a lot of people who are waiting to hear the positioning on some issues, okay? And if Donald Trump can speak articulately about some of these issues, and if he does, I think
Is the debate going to be a free-for-all?
It's going to be really interesting to watch. And I will say this, if she can needle him, here's where she needs to needle him. And I think issues about the foundations, both of them will come up. She needs to point out the inconsistency in his wealth and what he's reporting and what he's talking about and what we're learning to be true. So I think if she can box him into a corner and he flips out a little bit, and he will. I mean, he says some pretty outrageous things. I think she's going to win.
I think it's going to be, it is definitely must-see TV. There is absolutely no question about that. Okay, your glass is half full, your glass is half empty. Let's go around the table. Let's start with Susie Falk.
Yeah, my half-empty glass is public health experts in Wisconsin are concerned about an epidemic of elderly who are falling and dying as a result. The state's elderly death rate from falls is the second highest in the country and double the national average. My half-full glass is that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Dr. Priscilla Chan, have pledged $3 billion to prevent, cure, and manage all diseases by the end of the century. Although falling is not technically a disease, I do suspect that if this initiative is even somewhat successful, there will be a lot fewer elderly people falling at the end of the century.
Colin Roth.
My glass is half full because if you're a politics junkie, the next few weeks of debates and polls are going to be a lot of fun. My glass is half empty because come November, one of these two people is actually going to be president-elect.
Tracy Johnson.
My glass is half full because Milwaukee County Health and Human Services Director Hector Colon was finally reappointed to a 2-year term. My glass is half empty because the process included posturing and negativity rather than solutions and a sense of unity.
Jim Ott.
Jeff, my glass is half empty because it's about 265 days until summer. It's half full because it was announced last week that the Air and Water Show will return to the lakefront next summer after missing last year. It's just one more reason why Milwaukee is a great place to be in the summer.
Amen. And my glass is half full because a hit-and-run driver who killed a bicyclist in Germantown last May was finally convicted and sentenced this week. It's half empty because he only received a 2.5-year sentence. Life is apparently cheap in Washington County. Our Sunday Insight Countdown shows we're one day away from the first of 4 debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. The presidential election is 44 days away, and either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton will take the oath of office in 117 days. We will be right back. A rift appears to be developing between Governor Scott Walker and Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. Walker wants to continue with planned road improvements, but to delay some projects in order to avoid increasing the gas tax or increasing vehicle registration fees. Vos, on the other hand, wants to avoid delays, but is silent as to how to pay for the projects. Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald appears to want nothing to do with bucking the governor. So what do we do about roads in Wisconsin? Okay, our man in the legislature, Jim Ott.
Well, I can tell you, Jeff, that personally I'm not in favor of raising the gas tax, and I realize what I think Speaker Voss wants to do is put everything on the table because we got a complex problem facing us, a shortfall in the budget. There's a lot that is still going to be determined, obviously. If the Senate doesn't vote for a gas tax, it doesn't matter what the Assembly does. You got to have both houses, and then the governor has to not veto it. So that's one thing. Another thing is a registration fee, I think, is something maybe some of us would be a little more willing to look at because we're hearing we got more hybrid cars on the road, electric cars eventually, and if they're not using the gas and we raise the gas tax, we're making the people that drive gas-driven cars pay for an even greater proportion. There's also an audit that's apparently going to come out on the Department of Transportation due in December, and a lot of discussions lie ahead. And obviously, you know, Department of Transportation has to play a role in this. I think they do a good job on our roads, but a lot of people are looking at all the roundabouts. They put in 3 roundabouts in a row at some of the freeway exits, and they cost more. So maybe DOT has to play a role in using what they have more efficiently and effectively.
Colin Roth, I get no sense that among the legislature or the general population that there's much stomach for tax increases, gas tax or otherwise.
Right. Every single Republican runs each year saying they're not going to raise taxes, and this becomes kind of a knotty issue. What you see, I think, are just kind of starting positions before we get to something that's probably going to be closer to the middle, in which maybe we find some new revenue. I think the thing that everyone wishes they could do and would like to do would probably be tolling. Of course, the big elephant in the room with that one is the federal government and how you navigate that process.
Toll roads. Okay, Tracy Johnson, how important is it to continue developing and improving the roads around here, the zoo interchange construction and those things?
Oh, absolutely. I think this is the biggest shortcoming in this first proposal by the governor, is that they're talking about delaying the most important interchange where 90% of our commerce flows through. You cannot delay that project. And I think, to Colin's point, you need to make the pie bigger somehow. You need to come up with a sustainable funding solution. Other states have done it. They've seen increased economic development, and it's crucial to our economy and our tourism.
Okay, so Susie, if you were the queen, how do you take care of this?
Okay, it's a big problem, but I don't think tolls are the way, but I do think a gas increase, a tax increase makes a lot of sense. It's a bit of a user fee. I think registration increase, it makes a lot of sense. If you look at other states and their vehicle registrations, we're like really cheap compared to other states, $75. So I think, but other than that, you're gonna have to prioritize projects, and you're gonna have to focus on the ones that make the most sense. A lot of them are gonna sit and sit still for a while. I think businesses can play a role in that they can have flexible work hours. I think they should encourage carpooling. I mean, we're in for a mess, and it's about prioritizing, and I think there is definitely the need for a tax hike.
But at least in the city of Milwaukee, we're going to have a streetcar, so we've got that going for us. You might not want to hear it, but we're going to tell it to you anyways. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Ms. Falk.
Hillary Clinton's commanding presence, her deep understanding of policy issues, foreign and domestic, and her quick wit will be on display during tomorrow night's presidential debate. My advice to her is to keep the momentum going after tomorrow by learning how to harness the power of the media instead of hiding from it. She has to win this election.
Colin Roth.
My advice is for Governor Walker and Republican state legislators: don't let disagreements over transportation put a cloud over the entire session. Many areas still need bold reform.
Tracy Johnson.
My unsolicited advice is for anyone looking for authentic Italian food. Visit Mima's Cafe on Brady before it closes on New Year's Eve. It's where my husband and I had our first date, an icon of the East Side since the 1980s. The calamari is a family favorite.
Jim Ott.
And Colin, I don't think we're going to let this put a cloud over us. I think we're going to have a good session coming up. And speaking about driving and gasoline, anybody who's been using premium gas in a car that only requires regular may want to look at a just-released AAA study that shows there is no benefit if your car doesn't require premium. The AAA study condemns more than $2.1 billion was wasted last year on premium gas in cars that didn't require it.
And my unsolicited advice is for City of Milwaukee residents. It's apparently so unsafe in Milwaukee that the cops are telling people not to have packages left on their porches while they're at work because they'll be stolen. Folks, you get the government you vote for. Why not stop voting for people who can't handle this mess? And next on Sunday Insight, victory for now for a transgender student in Kenosha. Where does the bathroom battle go from here? Earlier this week, a federal judge in Milwaukee issued an injunction against the Kenosha School District, preventing it from requiring a transgender student to use the bathroom that corresponds with their biological sex. Specifically, the child was born female, but self-identifies as a male. This is the latest in a series of court rulings dealing with the issue and is arguably inconsistent with how some other courts have treated the matter. Is there a constitutional right to use a bathroom that corresponds with the gender you self-identify with? Susie Falk.
Yes, I do believe so. If you read the newspaper articles, the media have already given the right to transgender students to call them using whatever pronoun they prefer. So the Journal Sentinel article refers to this girl born as a he. Okay, so right away it gets confusing. What happens with gender-neutral bathrooms, okay, that are identified for gender these kids, is that they then become like they're stigmatized, and they don't want to use those bathrooms because they feel as though they're not being treated seriously.
Okay, what about the rights of it? Let's take a locker room example. 13-year-old girl going through puberty. Does she have no rights if she feels uncomfortable changing her clothes next to a 13-year-old anatomical boy who self-identifies as a girl? Does that 13-year-old girl have no right?
We're not talking about locker rooms right now. We're talking about bathrooms.
Okay,
and there are
ways, locker rooms different?
Bathrooms have.
Are locker rooms different?
We're not here to talk about locker rooms yet, okay?
You're not going to answer my question.
And what's going to happen is you're going to have some very creative building developers and those that design buildings that are going to make bathrooms more friendly to those who are transgender. That's the future.
Yeah, I don't think when Title IX was written in 1972, when they used the word sex, that it meant that females identifying as males could use a different facility. But I think where we all know this is headed is to the end of sex-segregated facilities.
Jim Mott?
Yeah, it's interesting how hard the school board is fighting back against this ruling. They said they're going to appeal both rulings that came out of the judge earlier last week. And I think what the school board is looking at is, where is this headed? You know, are we getting to a point that anyone can just say, I want to use the
whole self-identification issue?
Yeah,
Tracy, how do we resolve this?
I think you need to figure out how you solve it, meaning you have to have a process in place, which they are totally overriding through this executive order and kicking it to the courts. I have less of a problem with the issue and more of a problem with how they're handling it. If you say the school boards are handling it, let the school boards handle it.
See, I get hung up on the whole Title IX and constitutional right. I mean, to me, and I disagree with Susie on this, the answer is gender-neutral things. Just a gender-neutral changing room, a gender-neutral bathroom, I think that solves the whole problem, but I'm not the king. What is it that you don't get? Let's go around the table. Susie Falk.
Yeah, 5,300 Wells Fargo employees were fired for the same fraudulent activity all around the same time, and yet they were all acting individually. What I don't get is how their top boss, CEO John Stumpf, has managed to keep his job, his 8-figure annual bonus, his 8-figure salary, and his multi-millions in stock.
Colin Roth.
What I don't get is why there isn't a principled and robust Never Hillary movement like the Never Trump movement among Democrats. Does character and honesty count at all?
Tracy Johnson.
What I don't get is how White House emails continue to be hacked time and time again. When will we have a plan beyond, let's all be a little bit more careful? Cybersecurity is a parallel threat to our national security and must be addressed with force.
Jim Ott.
In 2007, when Lake Michigan water levels were falling, the high-tech global warming computer models were predicting that the lake levels could fall another 3 to 5 feet by 2030. What I don't get is how the models completely missed the more than 4-foot rise in lake levels over the last 4 years.
And what I don't get is how the owners of a single grocery store on 23rd and Hopkins can allegedly have gotten away with $3 million in food stamp fraud. And if one grocery store could get away with this much, how much is really being ripped off from the taxpayers? Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. First, though, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Susie, you're first.
Yeah, my loser is Forever 21, the American retail chain known for its trendy, cheap clothing made overseas, is being sued for trademark infringement by Harley-Davidson for selling coats emblazoned with a look-alike Harley logo. The two brands could not be more different. Shame on Forever 21. My winner of the week is UWM theater professor Ann Basting, who has been named recipient of the MacArthur Foundation Fellowship. Only the 6th Wisconsinite to be named a MacArthur Genius, Miss Basting has shown extraordinary originality and dedication to her work that integrates the arts into aging services and long-term care. Way to go.
Colin Roth.
My winners this week are the law enforcement officers and intelligence officials who quickly tracked down the New York and New Jersey bomber before anyone was killed. Hats off. My loser is the greater Milwaukee community that is suffering a heroin overdose epidemic. The medical examiner's office projects 320 deaths this year. Awful.
Tracy Johnson.
My loser is Hillary Clinton's estate tax plan. While she's really talking about a tax increase for the super wealthy, the message to all about sticking it to the rich people and business owners is not a solution to rampant spending that our government must get under control. My winner is Waterstone Bank. Thank you for bringing the Air and Water Show back to Milwaukee in July 2017. This event draws more than 400,000 people to our area and is a weekend of amazement, education, and patriotism.
Jim Ott.
Jeff, only winners for me this week, starting with the fantastic men and women who run the Stars and Stripes honor flights. I had the opportunity to serve as a guardian on last Saturday's flight, which carried 81 veterans to Washington, D.C. Stars and Stripes, once again, you provided an incredibly memorable day. And thank you to all the volunteers, military personnel, first responders, and the thousands of people who welcomed the veterans back home at the airport on Saturday night.
And your loser?
I don't have any losers.
That's right. You got all winners. It's my loser, and that's whoever leaked secret John Doe documents to the Guardian newspaper. I think their day of reckoning may be closer than some people think. My winner is political activist, conservation, and philanthropist Terry Kohler, who passed away this week at the age of 82. His was a life very well lived. He was a friend to many of us. Thanks for joining us, and join me for my radio show Monday at 12 noon. It's on News Radio 620 WTMJ. Have a great week.